Our average client makes $1 a day and they're going to work 12 hours to get it. That means that they cannot afford health care. And that means that the alternative usually is they just don't make it. We've done a lot of work lately in West Africa, and you all know what happened with Ebola and all of that stuff. We've done a ton of work over there. I was in a little town called Kenema, and it was up on the Sierra Leone border up there with Liberia and Guinea. We do a needs assessment before we ever ship, and that's one of those things that my dad started. And this is one of those truths of life that we know, by the way, just take a little detour, but we don't like to put this into practice. The truth of life is that your greatest strength becomes your weakness, and your greatest weakness can become your strength. You remember my dad was a real estate developer? Do you know what he didn't know anything about was healthcare? The audacity of deciding to do something with global healthcare when you don't know even what you're doing. Your greatest weakness becomes your greatest strength. We don't like doing that in our lives, do we? I don't want to admit when I'm weak. But the funny thing is when you admit it, it opens the door to a lot of really cool stuff. So my dad would go over there and he would sit down with these doctors and nurses and say, tell me, doc, what is it you do at this hospital? Now, he had to do that because he really, truly didn't know. And he would tell that doctor, just say it really, really slow because I'm going to have to write this down. I'm a developer, I got a kid who's a lawyer, things are bad for us. That little piece of weakness has become the central thread to the fabric of Project C.U.R.E. We do not still ship anything anywhere until one of us has gone and done a needs assessment. And we're testing the 3 C's. We're testing character. Do I really trust these people? I'm coming at you in a community where everybody works 12 hours a day and makes $1 a day, and I'm going to give you $500,000 worth of stuff. If I don't trust you, I'm going to make a thief out of you. That's what happens. So I really want to know who I'm working with, right? This business that I can do my entire life on Skype is a bunch of crap. Doesn't work. The only thing that counts is sitting across the table from somebody, drink a little bit of tequila. I like that one. In Mongolia, it's just straight vodka. Or really, really bad horse milk. Take the vodka. You learn things about people when you connect with them face to face. So the first thing I want to know is character. I want to know capacity. If I send you an x-ray machine, can you plug it in? Is there a radiologist here that can fix it? Can you get the cassettes and the film? Can you develop this stuff? Does your electricity here even work? If we put this thing in the ceiling, is it going to pull your roof down? Wouldn't that be nice to know before we spend all that time in the United States collecting it, raising money, and shipping it, only to find out that it's the best goat barn that those people ever had? And that's what happens. Character, capacity, the third thing is customs. Can you actually get it in? Can these people get this through customs without getting it stolen? We want to know those 3 things before we ever ship. So we do these needs assessments. We were up in the north part in Kenema in Sierra Leone, and we were in this hospital. The doctor in that hospital had asked me for 8 hospital beds with side rails. Well, I made a note of that, and we went and we did that needs assessment. It takes about 2 hours, and at the end of the 2-hour time I say, so let's just walk through the hospital. I got a really nice Nikon camera, and I'm going to take pictures of every inch of this hospital because I don't want to forget what I just saw. And I want everybody else in the United States to be able to look at my pictures and see what else we saw together, and we will do a better job of serving your needs if I can take pictures. They say, sure. They always say, sure. We walked into a room that was probably as big as this room, and it was just full of beds. Bed, 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 bed. No private rooms. I've been in places like in Rwanda where they have 2 and 3 people in a single bed. Unbelievable. I looked at the doctor and I said, hey doc, where's your plugins? He said, for what? I said, well, in my country, you ask for beds with side rails. Beds with side rails are electric. If you want manual beds like the ones you got, I can get those for you too, but those come out of an old folks home and they're not going to have side rails. He said to me, he said, well, they're not really for this room here. And I said, where are they for? He said, they're for labor and delivery. I said, okay. Like for mom when she comes in to have a baby, or after she had the baby, put her in the room? He said, no. He said, we have a problem with eclampsia. I said, well, let's go see that. So we walked down the hallway, And he's telling me that these moms never come in to get prenatal checkups. And the reason they don't is because going to the hospital is where everybody dies. So there's no way in heck you're going to go to the hospital. And they wait until they're 36, 48 hours in obstructed labor and they're bleeding to death, and finally somebody puts them in a white pickup and they drive them down the road, no ambulance. And they show up at the hospital and baby's already gone and mom dies, and we just repeated the cycle again. Well, we're talking about this, and he tells me about this fully eclamptic state that looks a lot like an epileptic seizure. And we walk through the swinging doors, and there's a woman from me to you, James, and she's in the bed and she's in full eclamptic shock. It looks like she's in an epileptic seizure, and she dies of a heart attack right there. And I looked at the doctor and I said, so explain to me how a hospital bed with side rails fixes that problem. And he said, well, we don't have anesthesia, and we don't have an operating theater that functions here. And so what we do is we tie her arms and legs to the side rails, and we try to do a cesarean section before she wakes up. This was not like 1864 in the Civil War. This was about a year ago in Sierra Leone. And here's the really tough thing. All those doctors and nurses that I met at that hospital in Kenema are gone today because of Ebola. They're gone. They died. And the story is not being told yet as to what happens 18 months from now when the next mom goes in to deliver that baby and there's no doctors. And all the beds are contaminated. And the operating theater that didn't exist then, guess what? We just perpetuate this cycle. It's 2015. It's time that we say stop. Let's fix that. And the really insane thing about that whole story is the stuff that's needed to take care of those moms and those kids and those dads that fall off the back of motorcycles and get cut with machete knives and all the stuff that happens. All of the things that are needed to fix those people are in such abundance in the United States that we throw them in the garbage. It's absolutely insane.